All right, we are live. We are live. Welcome to the Cigar Chronicles Volume 2, Episode 2, The Effects of the Mental Health Stigma in the Black and Brown Communities. I am one of your hosts, Tremont Arnold.
And I'm Ernest Tilley.
We want to definitely give a shout out to the partnerships that we have with our podcast. Definitely a shout out to BS3 Network, Roku TV, and all of the podcast affiliates. You can catch us on most of your podcast affiliates. So please like and follow us. So definitely want to give a shout out and thanks for the partnerships that we have with those affiliates. Definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Crowns by Trey Customized Brims, Soul Brother Cigars, and also Wing Snob. So definitely thank you for the partnerships that we have. If you want you some good wings, please go to Wing Snob, and that's SNOB and not Wing Stop. So definitely check that out. There are a couple in the Metroplex, so please, like I said, definitely support.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody for joining in with us. I have the pleasure of introducing one of our guest speakers, Judge Leila Mays. Judge Leila Lawrence Mays. Ms. Mays is a presiding judge of the 283rd District Court in Dallas County, Texas. Judge Mays has been a Dallas County Criminal Court magistrate for 18 years. As a judge, she has, by all accounts, made a considerable impact, especially with innovative and progressive judicial programs. I'm going to ask y'all to bear with me because she has a lot of accolades, and I'm going to go through every single one of them. Judge Lawrence Mays presides over cases in the first diversion court in Dallas County, Divert Court, for 10 years. She also develops and presides over STAC, the Successful Treatment of Addiction Through Collaboration Court, from 2007 to the present. These drug treatment courts work with people that have drug, alcohol addiction, and some with mental health concerns. The court provides oversight and resources to keep them to rehab and keep them out of jail and prison. STAC Court has celebrated more than 2,000 graduates in recovery. Judge Mays has developed and partnered with Legal Aid of Northwest Texas and began a legal clinic, ID Impact Texas, as of January 2020. This clinic works to address the needs of the community to clear hold on individuals' IDs and driver's license. Judge Mays is a member of the board of directors of the North Texas Behavioral Health Authority and has previously been a member of the board of directors of the TASC and a past state president. She holds workers association with the Behavioral Health Steering Committee, the Smart Justice Initiative in partnership with the Caruth Foundation. Judge Mays has been a featured speaker for NADCP, National Association of Drug Court Professionals, TASC, Nexus Recovery Center, National Prison Summit on Mass Incarceration, Movement Day Greater Dallas, Perkins School of Theology, the Big Texas Rally for Recovery, and for U.S. Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Judge Mays is also the mother of 2 young men in college and a native of Austin, Texas. She is committed to the practice and power of dispensing justice with balance and professionalism. She also is a member and faithful servant of Dallas Historic St. Luke Community United Methodist Church. Let's give her a Cigar Chronicles welcome, everybody.
Ooh, Ernest, you made me tired just reading all of that. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. But good evening. Thank y'all for inviting me here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. For the purpose of introduction, I want to pass it to Tremont to introduce our second guest.
Our second guest is Stacey D. Brown. She's a community activist, mental health advocate, entrepreneur. Stacey is also the founder and CEO of Stacey D. Brown Coaching and Consulting, LLC, a company for the development of people of faith in these areas of leadership, strategy, and outreach. Stacey founded Stacey D. Brown Coaching and Consulting, LLC, from her belief that true transformation is not one-dimensional, therefore must compass change of the mind, body, and soul. Stacy also serves as the performance coach with Coaching Services International LLC, where she trains, develops, and collaborates with over 60 coaches across the world, reaching over 1,500 clients. In addition to her work with CSI, Stacy is passionate advocate for mental health through her own experience with bipolar disorder and depression. Stacy understands the importance of maintaining good ear specialists. Stacy also works to dispel the myths and remove the stigmas about mental health care in the Black community. Stacy's activism also extends to her work with change-focused organizations such as Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, the Southern Sector of Rising, National Urban League, Young Professionals, Faith in Texas, and the list goes on and on. Stacy's a mother of three and a proud alumni of Texas Southern University, Jones School of Business. So definitely let's give a round of applause for our second guest, Miss Stacy Brown. Well, y'all are these these resumes, I tell you what. But I definitely want to go ahead and get into the questions. Because like I say, I think this is one of the things that the Black and the brown communities don't really take as seriously as we should. Because like I said, a lot of us are walking around with PSD and don't even realize it. So I definitely want to get in, get these questions going, and like I said, just try to just find out, and get a foundation of, where and just education about mental health. So I'm gonna start off with the first question. How does someone know if they are suffering from mental health issues?
Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Okay. First and foremost, you have to examine whether the issue is episodic or whether it's a disorder. A lot of people don't know the difference between the two and don't really understand that episodic can be anybody that is affected. Matter of fact, 51% of the population, according to the statistics given by National Alliance of Mental Illness, will be affected by some sort of mental health episode. So first and foremost, we need to examine that. Secondly, you need to understand whether it is just a behavioral thing or whether we're going clinical. What I mean by that is if it's affecting your daily functions. If you're unable to eat, sleep, or do anything like self-care activities, then it's in the realm of clinical. And that's when we need to seek mental health professionals, your LPCs, your psychologists, your psychiatrists that are licensed in order to address the chemical aspect of what is going on. Because sometimes it's not always just, feeling bad, because we all have days when we feel bad, right? Depending on the weather. If it's raining and lightning outside, I'm sorry. I grew up in an area where I'm not used to that. In El Paso, it doesn't rain. So when I get over here and y'all have seasons and weather and things like that, I'm not used to that. So, just understanding that when something is occurring, again, more than 2 to 3 days, and it's affecting, like I said, more of your daily functions, ability to get up, to brush your teeth, to take care for yourself, grooming, eating, sleeping, then it's really time to talk to a mental health professional.
Mm-hmm. Let me also add this, and I think that was great. I think that covered everything. But the other part of it too is that I think that it's somewhat difficult sometimes when someone brings it to your attention that you are suffering from something. I think sometimes self can't see self to know exactly what's what. But if it's somebody that you know and trust and love, and they're telling you there's some issue that you may need to investigate, I think that's also another way that you can seek professional help, whether it's your regular doctor, a psychiatrist, a mental health professional, counselor. Any of those people, I think, could, you go to the right place for an assessment to find out, is there something going on, or is it really nothing? Is it something that has to be treated by medication or not? Because not everything has to be treated by medication. There may be some behavioral changes that can take place, or even maybe just some group therapy that could take place that, that will take care of that issue.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Good point. Well, I guess we're move on to the next question. And the question will be, can mental health issues be prevented? And in addition to that, and I'll address it to Ms. Mays first, how has COVID contributed to the process or through mental health issues during this pandemic?
Okay. My job being a judge, I am at the felony court level. So I'm at the highest level of felony cases. We have seen a serious increase in mental health issues. One of the things that seemed to be a companion, not all the time, but a lot of times with mental health is also substance use disorder. Mm-hmm. I think that the people that I see are struggling a lot of times with both, but I think that COVID has put us in a position where so many people were isolated for so long. So many people were not monitored for so long. People did not have the social circles that they would normally be able to reach out to talk to, because nobody was going anywhere. At least you were restricted from doing that. There has been a serious increase. And I think that with that being the case, one of the things I can say about mental health services, they never stopped. A lot of it went to the telehealth, where now we're doing more Zoom or Teams or some other kind of video. Or even if you don't have those type of devices, you can just call on the phone, and they're doing counseling and whatever is necessary on the telephone. So there are ways to kind of work with it, but there has definitely been an increase. And I think COVID has just been something that has just devastated everybody's life, not just the people that are suffering from mental illness, but everybody. And I think loneliness and depression has also increased. Suicides have increased. So I think it's just the kind of thing where if you find yourself not being able to get out of that feeling that you're having or that mental space that you're in, just seek a professional. Maybe you just have to go a few times, but if it needs to be more, fine. But just be willing to do it and just know when there's a problem so that you can have it addressed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ms. Stacy?
So just to echo what the judge has said, it's definitely been a contributor, COVID has. What people don't realize is that COVID became a collective trauma that all of us experienced. And there are some of us that experienced it differently because, you know, those who had been used to anxiety and depression kind of knew how to deal with it. However, when you have a segment of the population that doesn't know what it's like to experience the depression, the isolation, the anxiety, and some of the symptomology that come along with it, they didn't know, some of the coping strategies that you're learning in therapy and in group talk and things like that. So like she said, there was an uptick in what we see as self-medication, i.e. substance abuse, even borderline addiction. And let's be clear, it's not just with illegal substances. We're looking at prescribed drugs. We're looking at, things that are legal, like food. You see a lot of people that have had tremendous amounts of weight gain because a lot of their coping strategies are unavailable to them. So what used to be a trip to the gym for 30 minutes, 40 minutes of workout, now that's prohibited to me. And then, I may not have the money, as I found out during COVID. Weights are expensive, very much so.
Right.
So, not everybody may be in that financial situation to where they would be able to have a really equivalent activity to help to subside some of that anxiety. But I will say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So really making sure that you are doing your self-care activities, you're monitoring your diet, you're monitoring your sleep, you're monitoring your stress levels, you're monitoring your environments, including your relationships, not just personal, but professional as well, because all of those are going to be contributors, especially if you're looking at mental health from a holistic perspective. Those are all going to be contributors that will determine whether you have a mental health episode or not.
Wow. And if I could just deviate just a second, we had a question from some of our folks on our page, and the question is: do you think social media normalizes some of the dysfunctions that are symptoms of mental health issues? Either of you like that?
I would say absolutely. Social media is kind of a double-edged sword, though. because a lot of people have been able to discuss things in under the guise of anonymity, some of the things that they're experiencing, and have a support network of strangers that will identify with some of the things that they're going through. However, as the old saying says, comparison is the thief of joy. Some of the things that are perpetuated on social media, like I tell some of my clients, you can't necessarily go off of social media because social media is ESPN. Honey, you're going to see highlights and commercials. People trying to perpetrate things that they don't have and only the high points of their life. You're not going to see the nitty gritty. You're not going to see, a lot of the low points that they post. So if you're basing yourself off of, what you see for other people, really and truly, you're basing yourself off of fantasy. And so a lot of the things that you see, the depression and the anxiety associated with social media, in adults, deals with that comparison. Now, when you're talking about kids, you're talking about a completely different thing, because our children, especially generations Z and this alpha generation, don't know what it's like to not grow up with social media. Everything in their life has been social media based. They're learning, I have a daughter that's 4 years old in pre-K. She's issued an iPad, so she will never know what it's like to have a textbook, really, until probably she gets to college. And even then, she may not even know that. However, but you have to look at the aspect of what it has, on things like social, emotional learning. When we had rumors, it would just pretty much circulate to maybe the grade, maybe the school. Now these kids have to instantly have to deal with things about them being circulated around the world almost instantaneously.
That's right.
So you're not just being bullied by somebody in your school or somebody in your town. You're being could be bullied by nearly thousands of people who know nothing about you and just know this one fact, this video or this letter or this picture that is now on the internet and is there for forever. Because once you post it, honey, it's really hard to take anything down. So imagine that standard of perfectionism that these kids are trying to live to. And you wonder why our kids are having so much issues with anxiety and depression, but also some of the physiological signs that we see: stomach issues, acne, sleep issues, things like that also, show themselves in dealing with some of these mental issues. And really and truly, they work both ways. So you could have a physiological issue, like a lack of vitamin D, which most African Americans have, that affect mood, that then shows up, and we're thinking that it may be mental illness. But really and truly, if we're looking at the root cause, that's why it's important to go to a mental health professional or to somebody who is trained to really do a deep dive as to causality, because when we start getting into self-diagnosis, that's where we get in trouble. But anyway, that's a little tangent, but that's pretty much my take on that.
That's powerful. Somebody comment a comparison to the thief of joy. That's going to be a headline.
It certainly is.
That was great.
It certainly is.
Just Mays, did you want to add on?
I mean, I agree. I agree with everything that was said. I don't think any more needs to be said about that, because that is so very true. So very true.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we're going to keep it, this question to you. We'll start off with you, Judge Mays. What are some main contributions of mental health issues, in your opinion?
Everything.
Right. I was just getting ready to say, honey, what is it?
Everything. And I think what it is too, y'all, I think that, okay, so let me give you a perspective. When I first started doing criminal law, I got my law license in 1990. Well, I know what I know about me, my family, my sister and brother, how we grew up and all of that. I didn't know until I started talking to people that had criminal cases that people lived different than I did. I thought we all kind of lived the same. And when I said it,
right.
and you thought that was a good idea, and you thought, and I did criminal defense, so I got to talk to whoever I needed to talk to and could really get down to tell me what you were really thinking about that. And when I would talk to them, I would think, oh, so you thought that was a good idea to go in and steal or put a gun to somebody's head or do whatever. And they said yes. And so I have learned throughout the years that people are brought up so differently in their households that so many different things can be affected. And I can tell you one of the main things that most people are affected by is called trauma. People suffer so much trauma, even as children, that they take to their adulthood. And because they never have engaged with a mental health professional, they're still dealing with that same trauma when they were 5 or 6 or 7 years old. So let me just say this. I'm going to suggest it to everybody that listens to this podcast. Even if you don't think you need it, go see a mental health professional.
Absolutely. I recommend seeing a mental health professional like you go see the dentist twice a year, just to do checkups, just to make sure everything is all right.
Wow.
Exactly.
Because, you know, and it's even to a higher degree as, you know, African Americans and with our Latino, Latinx brothers and sisters, because really and truly to be, you know, a minority in this country is to be triggered every day. So how can you heal in an environment that is constantly re-inflicting you with wounds? So it becomes an issue of now, I'm in this environment that's not conducive to my healing. So how do I function? And really and truly, we're talking about the contributors of mental health. And SAMHSA, which is one of the government organizations that's assigned to mental health, was talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness, particularly dealing with mental health. And, you know, that includes your education, your social, your emotional, your economical, your environmental, you know, all your spiritual, all these elements come together to contribute to your mental health. But what happens, you know, when you're missing and have disparities in many of these areas, when you don't necessarily have good education. Why? Because your area is not economically placed to where your schools are fully funded. What happens when you have environmental factors where you have people that treat, particularly the Southern sector, and I'm going to say on this as a board member of Southern Sector Rising, I'm going to take an opportunity when you have people that are dumping in your backyard and contributing to your physical health deteriorating. Well, that has effect on your mental health. When you have an area that doesn't have jobs, where there's very little hope, where there's very little, you know, where safety is something that is neglected, even something as simple as having a well-lit area in your neighborhood. These are all contributors. And to go back to what you guys were saying, as far as trauma, many people don't understand what trauma looks like. Sometimes we only consider trauma as the excess of something. So abuse, the excess of violence, you know, but a lot of people fail to consider that neglect is also a very, very big source of trauma. And for mental health professionals, that's even harder to treat, because how do you treat something that was never given? So how do I treat you not receiving love? Because when you receive it, how are you going to know how to process it? You've never gotten it. So to you, it's a foreign concept. So, you know, cognitive dissonance kicks in, and either you're going to accept it or you're going to reject it very violently. So there's a lot of things that we're dealing with in our minority community that is in addition to some of the struggles that our mainstream, quote unquote, community will experience, because they just don't understand what it is to be at war daily in our own selves. Everything is a fight with us. How we wear our hair, whether we can walk down the street, what car we drive. If our car is too nice, oh wait, how did you get in that? You know, so it's just a constant struggle.
Wow. I think we need to take a stretch break for that.
But y'all know, just kind of staying on this same topic and people needing to see a mental health professional, let me suggest this too. And Dallas County, I can tell you, does a really good job with this. Dallas County has, and most people who are employed have, what's called EAP. EAP is Employee Assistance Program. You can go see a mental health professional for free. In Dallas County, it's free. You get 3 of them. So when you get 3 sessions, after that, if it's the same issue, even if it's a different issue, call, see if you can get 3 more. If not, you use your insurance through the mental health part of your insurance and see a professional. But I just want everybody to know that is I think that's a resource that we don't use often enough. And so when Stacy says, let's go to, you should go twice a year, you don't have to pay for it. It's free.
Yeah, that's so true. I work for AT&T, and that's one of the things that we try to advocate, especially folks having attendance issues. Because you never know what the actual trigger is, as far as why they're missing work, and so and it's really incumbent upon the managers to offer EAP, which in most cases they do, but we have to reinforce to make sure the managers offer that service to them, because to your point, it is a free service. So thank you for bringing that up, Miss Mays.
Absolutely.
Boy, y'all are wearing these questions out. Moving on to another question, and you kind of touched on it, but I think it's worth trying to deep dive a little bit more on. Is why has anxiety and depression been so much higher in the Black and Brown communities? And we can start with, I think we started with Miss Brown first. If Miss Mays, you want to take that first?
I think it's just what we just talked about with the last question. I think it all has to do with trauma. I think it has to do with untreated mental health issues. I think it has to do with untreated everything else that we don't go to the doctor for that causes us trauma. I think that causes us anxiety. I think that anxiety can kind of lift its head in a lot of different ways for a lot of different things. Let me tell you all my story about anxiety. I just started taking anxiety medicine probably about maybe 2-3 years ago. And if y'all have an opportunity to do this, take this class. It's called Mental Health 101. No, Mental Health First Aid. Yes. Mental Health First Aid. I did it because I work with people that have mental health issues. So I said, well, let me go get this training. Y'all, I was in the middle of that training and I said, wait a minute. They're talking about me. Wow. Wait. You mean your heart races and you feel like it's going to come out of your chest and your palms get sweaty and you can't speak and your throat gets dry? Mm-hmm. As soon as we finished that class, I went and made me an appointment to see my primary care. I said, hey, let me tell you what this is that I deal with. But let me tell you the times I deal with it. Just like you said, it's an episode, Stacey. I sing at church. I lead songs at church. When I get up to sing and when I know I'm going to sing that day, that anxiety raises its ugly head. I have sung since I was in the 6th grade. I never knew that's what anxiety was. And I worked in this area. I had no idea that that's what anxiety was. Yeah. So I have what they call performance anxiety. And I also found it happens when I speak on something that's not drug, alcohol, mental health, something else, if it's some topic or somebody calls on me. I don't like people to call on me if I'm not prepared to know what it is they're going to call on me about. Mm-hmm. But I can take that medicine 30 minutes before. I had no idea. Calms everything down for me. And I tell you, when I think about that and I think about the number of people that just out in society that deal with anxiety, that first of all, you don't even know what that is because you're so used to dealing with it. You just think everybody else has the same thing too when they don't. I just think it's something good to know. And I think that when you talk about, I guess, these different things people are dealing with the African-American community, I think it's just lack of care, lack of resources, lack of a lot of things that we just don't have, but a whole lot of it because we just don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I want to jump in when you said just don't know, because I could speak from personal experiences. Just like when I was growing up, I just used to thought it was just being nervous or, and the way I learned how to swim was my uncle grabbed me and threw me in the deep end and said, you either gonna swim or drown. Yeah. You fall when you're a kid, boy, don't cry, suck it up, So I just think it's one of those things where we weren't allowed, to express, our feelings, and we just didn't know.
Right.
Ms. Brown, did you want to add on to that? Or?
Right. Just and he kind of took my thought. Emotional and socialization have a lot to do with why the levels of depression and anxiety are so high in the African American community, because we're socialized to have two feelings. We can either have joy or we can either have anger. And that's not just from inside of the community, that's from outside as well. So if it's any of those other emotions, we're taught to stuff those. And one thing you will learn about your emotions is stuffed emotions don't go away. Matter of fact, they come back with interest, and it will show itself in other areas of your life. We're taught not to cry. We're taught, even in our and our places of quote unquote refuge and healing, that, you know, mental health issues are stigmatized. You know, oh, honey, you don't need to go to the doctor, just pray about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I say that as an ordained minister, right? So, you know, if y'all gonna get on me, it's all right. It's perfectly okay. But, you know, there's some learning that has to be done, just because the issue, the symptomology isn't always seen like diabetes or high blood pressure. However, it is a dysfunction of one of your organs. It is your brain. Is literally what mental illness is a lack or an excess of different chemicals in your brain. So you would not tell somebody who is having a heart attack, well, just pray about it. No, you would call the paramedics and you would make sure that they got the care they need. You would now tell somebody that's, you know, experiencing diabetes or high blood pressure, you don't need to take that medicine, girl. That's just them doctors trying to get rich.
Right.
But if we think, yes, but because we don't think of mental health disorders or mental health episodes as something required that are really and truly medical issues, that's why you have so many people that do not seek help for it, because it's deeply stigmatized, especially amongst African American men. Seeking help is already a stigma, right? So don't even say, oh no, not only am I seeking help, I'm seeking help from a therapist, child. All the things that people will try to put up and say. But until we really start debunking these stigmas and these myths that somehow seeking a therapist is something that is bad, really and truly, you need to go to a therapist if you're healthy. You go to a therapist, you know, you go to a physician just for your physical. Why not do that for your mental health? Until we start normalizing expressing emotion, normalizing being okay with not being okay, normalizing not being super women and carrying all these burdens, and normalizing not being tough men, not crying, not showing emotion, we are still going to have these issues, and we're going to continue to pass them on to the generations that follow us.
That's so funny. That's so funny you say that. That kind of triggered me going back. Back in 2002. I was having a house built. Just got married. I had a baby on the way, and so we're in the process of moving into this house. My wife was on bed rest, so I'm trying to work and move, pack, and do, and take care of her. And so one of my managers at work had said, "Ernest, something don't seem right about you." I said, "Why don't you go to EAP?" I'm like, "Man, I'm not going to EAP. I'm good." So I end up going. And so, I mean, I went to this lady and I went in there 7 minutes, and I'm leaking. I'm crying like a baby. I am crying.
That's what happens.
I'm like, man, what is wrong with me? And I'm just sitting there. She said, "Do you realize how stressed you are?" And it did not dawn on me at all. I'm not even feeling myself crying. So I get exactly your point on that. That is so true.
Well, I think people have got to try that. People, if you've never tried it, just go. Even if you don't think anything's wrong, just go and get a checkup, talk to somebody. Because one thing I've told people before, that is one place you can go. You're not going to hear your business anywhere. People have a license that are able to counsel people. They will lose their license if they reveal anything you say to them.
Absolutely.
They will lose their license. So you should feel comfortable knowing this is a professional. They are not going to repeat your business because this is a medical professional.
Yep.
Hey, let me tell y'all something else too that kind of came to mind. Miss Stacy just talked about anger. Let me tell you what I learned too, and I didn't learn this, y'all, until I was on the bench, and I said, "What? You know how like you can?" One thing that I had started experiencing was that when I would meet with some of the women in court with me. Let me back it up a little bit. The people who were in my drug treatment court went to a 6-month inpatient treatment program, and they would come to my court for a year to 18 months for the aftercare. So the aftercare is you go back into outpatient treatment. You should be clean and sober. You're making 12-step meetings. You have a sponsor. You're working on your recovery and all of that. Well, one of the things that I kept experiencing was there would be women that would come to me and they would just be going off. I mean, they would be, and remember too, this is a more casual, non-confrontational setting, not your regular court. I'm talking about drug treatment court. When they would go off, the one experience that I was so grateful to have, I happened to have an African American counseling supervisor. So when I would get off the bench, I say, okay, what was that? What did I just hear? What did that mean? Do y'all know she told me that that's depression? I said, what do you mean this anger, this lady going off is depression? Because of course we talked it through, but I needed to understand what this was I saw and how she would categorize it. I would have never guessed that anger is depression. Anger could be depression, and that she needed to work through some things, that she probably needed some medication to bring her down about 100 notches.
Wow.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off of that, anger and mood swings show themselves more in men that are experiencing depression. So a lot of times, like you said, we don't associate the anger, the outburst with depression. And it very much is symptomology of that clinical depression. So we just need to be really mindful to go to mental health professionals, because even as someone who is trained in mental health, some of those symptoms are so closely related with those disorders that it's real easy for you to think that you have one thing and really you don't. And a lot of things, we just see in our Facebook doctor, Facebook lawyer, how we be all of a sudden having law degrees and act like we went to all these years of medical school when we get on Facebook and see certain things. But really and truly, it's really important because like I said earlier, some of this may not just be a mental thing. Some of it is very much some of the physical issues with our bodies that are showing up as behavioral issues. Like I said, not having enough vitamin D shows itself as, mental health disorder, especially in African American women. African American women are also higher to experience things like fibroids and uterine, disruptions. What do you think that has effect on your hormones? What do you think that's going to affect your mood? So it's going to show up as something that looks like mental health disorder. So it's really important for us to go to physicians that understand, and I think this goes into the another one of the questions, that understand us, and are really knowledgeable of not just the things that typically affect African Americans, but also affect people living in the certain demographics. Because like you said, we're all really we're all subject to bias, right? We can only go off of the perspective that we have. So just because somebody is our shade doesn't mean they're very much understanding of our situation. So you can have a physician that may be Black, but is very much perpetuating the same systems of white supremacy in the medical fields that are leading to some of the disparities that we have.
Right. Yeah.
If they don't truly understand where you're coming from, your perspective, and all the things that are contributing to your medical issues, then they are not truly providing complete and utter medical care.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take the benevolent offering right now. We're going to take it right now.
Well, I'll tell you, this is some good stuff, y'all. This is good stuff.
We have a question from one of our listeners, Derek Smith. Do we as Black people carry that stigma held in the medical community that Blacks can tolerate more pain than other people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is why you see, quote unquote, superwoman syndrome predominantly held in the Black community, where we literally die almost 10 years earlier than our counterparts, because all the things that we attribute to, just sucking it up, right? Just some of the things that we experience. If you look at even some of the social determinants, and I know we'll talk about that later, but let's look at some of the things that, really affect, we'll call it Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And at the base of those needs, food, clothing, shelter, security. one of the main things, security, is housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most African Americans in major cities are renters. They're transient. Only 36% of the homeowners in America right now are African American. So if we're constantly moving around and feeling insecure in something as simple as our housing, imagine growing up having to, you know what? I can't let society see me cry. I can't let them know that, they hurt me. Or even in the work environment, and I've experienced this as a Black woman as well, in predominantly white environments. I did 15 years as an auditor. I had to mute myself every single day. And that is traumatic when you can only show up as a portion of yourself for the majority of your day.
Right.
Wow.
So, and a part of that is we do socialize. You know what? We just have to suck it up, right? No.
Yeah. And you know what else too? Just I guess in dealing with that too, I think that we as a people, and I'm not even going to say it's just Black people. We seem to do it more, but I think everybody does it. We must take time for ourselves. You must take time out of your busy day, out of taking care of kids and getting them to and fro and getting to the game and the practice and trying to be sure your mom's okay and your dad's okay and uncles, and you have to be sure you take time for yourself. So I think that it's the kind of thing where people should find their resources. If you don't have money, there is MetroCare you can go to. There is funding you can go to. If you have a substance use disorder, there's funding you can get that's free. If you're indigent, it is free. People use sliding scales, child and family guidance. I was just listening to a presentation that they had done. There are places you can go. I know that Stacey talked earlier about, what'd you say, the South Sector?
Southern Sector Rising.
Southern Sector Rising. I mean, I think they're just places that, and I know that there's also a Southern Sector. Is it the Black Psychologists?
Yes, there's a couple of resources that you can utilize. NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, rather, they provide free group sessions. The same thing for depression and bipolar society support alliance, rather. They provide free sessions. If you're in some of the school districts for your children, there's a family tree program that provides up to 10 counseling sessions for your child. And I believe 3 group sessions for the family. So there, like you said, there are resources for those that are dealing with addiction. In the Southern Sector, Mr.
Joe Powell.
Yes, right. Joe Powell. I mean, if you're in mental health, you know Joe Powell.
Yes,
that provides, sessions there. There's many of our churches, Harmony CDC from Concord. There's, Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship. There's many churches that actually have counseling centers attached to them, which I am glad to see, because let's be clear, sometimes the church is the perpetrator of a lot of trauma in the community, but that's a whole different discussion for a whole different day.
But you're right. So you just have to ask, you have to do some research. And even with the counselors and the places that you want to go for counseling, look and see what some of their reviews look like. Because I think that it's not always, you can't, there are haters out there too, but I think that you can do your research to know what is more appropriate for you. I remember when I was going to go to counseling, they allow you to say, do you want a male or a female? Do you want someone that has a bachelor's? Do you want somebody master's level? They will ask, is there a certain religion you want? There's so many questions that you can actually find somebody that you would feel more comfortable with. So just for anybody and everybody to know, if you call your insurance company, they can break it on down for you.
Absolutely. And just to know, there's different modalities. Not everybody is a talk therapist person. Right. And so there are different types of therapies that are not so much talk therapy. Because in some disorders, talk therapy isn't the best prescribed method. So if I have somebody that's suffering from extreme PTSD, I'm not going to want them to talk about it because they're going to re-trigger themselves. So I may consider a method that's more nonverbal, EMDR. or an exposure therapy, something else, a group therapy for children, play therapy. There are so many things that you can explore, but you will not know that until you reach out and ask for help, and utilize the resources like the EAP. They will break this down to you, like you said, the insurance. So it's just us getting out of our own way and, being our biggest advocate instead of our biggest adversary and going to get help.
Right.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff.
And I'm gonna keep it. We're gonna keep with you. This question with you, Ms. Brown, to start off. What do you see the major barriers for minorities getting adequate mental health care? And then the second part to that question: how do we need to break these barriers?
First and foremost, I would say access to care. In Dallas, if you look at one of the biggest healthcare providers for mental health, it's the Dallas County Jail. The same thing in Houston County.
That's right.
There's not very many mental health facilities between I-30 and I-20. So, there's just not a lot of care facilities there for even if people do want to get that help. A lot of the neighborhoods that are missing that are dependent on public transportation. How will you get to public transportation if all the mental health facilities are north of 30? And then, we have the issue where if somebody is experiencing a mental health episode, more than likely somebody is going to call the police. More than likely they're going to get sent to the emergency room. So now we have Parkland and all the other hospitals that are inundated in their emergency rooms with mental health cases, when really and truly, had we had really good resources, and shout out to the Right Care team, because I'm on all those mental health calls with John Marley Price and the behavioral health leadership team, trying to put things in order. But right now I would say one of the biggest barriers for us is infrastructure. We need those facilities in our community. Then secondly, we need to educate people to use those facilities. Understanding, and like I said earlier, removing those stigmas to getting help. We need to make them more accessible. One of the things that you'll see if you study mental health is the benefits of peer groups, where you have people that have been through mental illness themselves and are now educated and equipped to come from a peer perspective. What would happen if we had a peer specialist in every single barbershop? What would happen if we had a peer specialist in the beauty shops? If there was somebody like, you have the neighborhood candy woman, if we had the neighborhood peer specialist,
that's
how
good.
would it look if we normalize mental health within our communities?
Right. That is good.
Wow.
Talk a little more about the peer specialists, you all. This is something that I think everybody will be hearing a whole lot more about. It's people with shared life's experiences that are peer support specialists for whatever you're dealing with. They have them for mental health. They have them for reentry. They have them for addiction. They have them for these different areas that people are getting trained in. And it's really showing that model is working. It is working. So peer support is a really big thing. And just like what Stacy was just talking about, APA, that's located right there by the train tracks at Robert B. Cullum and Martin Luther King, they have a lot of resources for mental health and for substance use. And Mr. Joe Powell runs that center. And there are places that you can go to and get the help that you need, or even just get the resources. Right down the street, I believe, is what's they call the living room. The living room is supposed to be a safe space where a mentally ill person can go in, and it's set up more like a could just to be sure that you could get what you need in a more relaxed setting. So there are resources out there. We just have to, make sure you do some research to find out where they are.
Absolutely.
Golly, good deal. Okay, goodness. As far as did anyone answer the question for how do we break the barriers?
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about.
Infrastructure and education.
You're kind of breaking up, Miss Mays. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on. I think we can kind of change this. Y'all done in. Won't tell you. Hey, our spirits are filled right now.
And you know what? But before you even say that, Ernest, let me say something else. And I'm glad you said that, because it came to my mind earlier and I didn't say anything about it earlier. I think that people work in these spaces, me, Stacy, other folks that are that work with people that have struggles, mental health issues, you need to be sure you're taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
So you need to go too. So I'm just not preaching to the choir, because I'm gonna make me an appointment and find somebody to go to, because unfortunately my therapist passed away, the one I had gone to maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So I got to find somebody new. I got to start over again.
My appointment is next week.
I know, that's right. But I'm telling y'all, we have to do it, and we have to do it for our own sake. We can't just talk about it. We got to be about it. So we need to all do it. We need to all 4 of us on this call. I see you already have your appointment, Stacey. You're a little ahead of me. But I plan on doing mine very soon, because we've got to find, just what we can to make ourselves better, mentally and physically.
Absolutely. And to your point about, caregivers, and this is just in any profession when you're pouring out. This includes teachers, nurses, any profession. Secondary trauma and vicarious trauma is real. It's very real. And so you yourself can go into a mental health episode, not because anything that you experience, but because you are so close to what other people have experienced that it now affects you. There is a transference there. And so the judge said, it is so important to make sure that you have, built up your, what I call the emotional bank account, and that you're not on empty, that you're staying on full. It's impossible to pour from an empty cup. It really is. So you have to make sure you are constantly doing things to refuel yourself.
That's good. Ooh, that's good stuff. That's good, Stacey.
Goodness.
I love it.
Okay, well, I think we have about 8 minutes, so we're gonna set the tone a little bit lighter, so possibly. So tell me the first thing that comes to mind, and I'll start with you, Ms. Brown. Socioeconomic disparities.
Systems of white supremacy. I'm sorry, you picked the wrong one, because I'm
that probably isn't much lighter. It's not gonna be lighter.
Look, very much an activist at heart.
Systemic
racism. I do a lot of work, on healthcare justice, because really and truly, especially, coming from the women's health perspective, some of the things that we have to fight is ridiculous. Like, just to get half of the things in our communities that is freely given in others is ridiculous. But that was my take on it.
You said light, didn't you, Ernest? You said light.
I should have started with Miss Mays on that question.
Okay, I know you should.
Miss Mays.
Ooh. But I really think the same thing, because we have to remember we're coming from generations. We're just now starting to break some of these barriers. And only because we've been able to put ourselves in a position economically to do a little better, than our parents and our grandparents. And with that being the case, I think that we all just have to, I guess do what we can. But a whole lot of times, guess what? We're not the ones that have control over anything.
Nope.
So that's why we can control ourselves. You go see a mental health professional, try to put yourself in the right place, and then just try to make good decisions and maybe help somebody else. But when you talk about what was the word that you used? What was that you said?
Socioeconomic disparity.
Yeah. I mean, that's nothing new. We've always had that. And they say now that the next generation is going to be the first generation that doesn't do better than their parents.
Absolutely.
And COVID sure didn't help with any of that.
At all.
So I mean, I think all we can do is all we can do, and I think we have to be the ones to do better. We just you as an individual, and to teach your children, to do better. I think that's all we've got.
That's powerful. Come on.
All right. Lack of minority health professionals.
Same. I think it's disparities. It's hard. Let me tell y'all what. My kids went to school when they went to college. I said, wait a minute, who raised the cost of college like this? We can hardly afford to go. And y'all know I'm not getting hardly any. They're not going to get any financial aid. So how are we going to go to school? And so I ended up, at least with one of mine, he started going to community college. I said, well, I think that's your best bet. Because guess what? Who can afford it? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to spend, 10 years, 15 years post higher education trying to pay your loans back, which puts you in a whole nother economic issue. Because if you don't pay it, they're going to garnish you. So I don't know. I think that we're back at the same position. I think, I don't know. I think they're going to have to be some solutions. But for right now, I think people just have to do the best they can with what they've got.
When I think of Black and minority health professionals, I also think cultural competence. Because like I said earlier, all skin folks ain't kin folks. So I need you to not only understand my struggles from the aspect of my race and some of the physical things that I'm predisposition to as an African American female, but I need you to understand some social things that may be unique to my upbringing and the community that I live in, and really and truly it hurts me to see that a lot of our folks can't go to college because of things like we said. Right now, me in the student loan debt, I'm looking, I was like, this is a whole house.
Right.
this is a whole house.
Mm-hmm.
But, it seems like the better off you are financially, the more you punish, and it's really sad that I'm looking at, I have a freshman in high school and I'm looking at tuition. I was like, your one semester was a whole year. Right. When I went to school. But looking at my 1 year, that was all 4 years for, my mom and my dad when they went to school. So it's just one of those things that, there's so many different factors that come into play when it comes to lack of minority mental health professionals. Yeah. But let me tell you something else too that I think that kind of contributes to that I have made a conscious decision of. It used to be the kind of thing, at least when I was in school, that when you graduated high school, shoot, I am going to college. I'm never, ever going back home. They don't have to worry about me. I am going to have me a good time. I'm trying to encourage at least one of my sons is here, one is off at college. Stay home a little longer so you can kind of get on your feet and not have to struggle when it comes to going to school, paying for school and all of that. Because when I was in school, you get a student loan and you would still have extra to go do whatever you want to do with the extra money. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. Well, I will say, just going off of that, it's how we're socialized. There's some communities where you can stay in the house as long as you need to. Black folks, at least in my growing up, was when you 18, you out, Right. So how are we really lending to that, multi-generational wealth building, and one generation can take care of the other? Because really and truly, there's some cultures where the grandparents take care of the kids, so they don't have that astronomical, daycare bill. Because I look at the daycare bill, and that's a mortgage too. How about that one every month? Yes. Yes. So we just have to learn how to re-socialize ourselves and learn how to think differently. Because really and truly, if you look at African culture, they had multiple generations in outside we came over here and got real colonized real quickly. So we need to think outside the box. That's right.
I certainly agree, and I think one thing that's been lost, and I think that goes back to the 70s, is the implementation of getting these kids trades. If we can start getting these kids to start getting trades, I think that'll really change the dynamic as far as the success of this generation coming up and going forward. Being a trade, if you have a trade, you will always have a job and you'll always be able to be successful.
That's right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Did we lose Stacey?
I don't see her anymore.
Okay, well, this has been very informative, boy. I'm telling you, this is.
Yeah, Stacey is good. Stacey is really good. She has some really good points. Very good points.
Indeed. So while we wait for her to come on, we have about a minute or two. Ms. Mays, do you have any final words you'd like to state before we?
Well, I first just want to say thank you, Ernest. Thank you, Tremont. I just appreciate you all having this forum for us to really talk. I think that these are the kind of forums that I think that we should have more often. We could get more people to engage in these kind of conversations, to know that there's a problem that we need to face and that we need to address. There's ways just throughout our conversation that we've talked about, ways to address them, what the issues are, and the resources. So I just want everybody to know there are ways that you can get help. There are resources out there that you can pay based on your income. And I just appreciate y'all having me, and I've definitely enjoyed listening to Stacey today.
Right.
I have.
Thanks for coming back, Stacey. We thought we lost you.
You know what? I guess StreamYard was like, you know what? You've talked enough tonight. We're muting your mic. Get out.
Cut off.
Get out.
Did you have any final words before we?
It just really and truly for everybody to just take care of yourselves. Know that your body is really the best indicator on how the best tool to know what it needs. Understand that if your body needs it, it's going to take it by any means necessary. So get your rest. Eliminate stress from your life. Try to get your exercise. Get some sunlight. Really and truly reevaluate relationships, because really and truly, some of the relationships that we keep, family included, are very toxic and are contributing to our early demise. So have some critical conversations. If you need to know how to do it, I will drop my information in the chat and I can give you some tools on it. But really and truly, be well, take care of yourself first and then others, and really focus on you.
Wow.
That's good.
Thank y'all so much, man. This has been awesome. Tremont, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it out. I ain't got nothing to say after all that, man. We definitely thank you, Judge Mays, and definitely thank you, Stacey Brown, for coming on and enlightening us and enlightening the viewers of, just the mental health disparities that, us in the Black and Brown community are going through. Actually, all of us are going through, so
Right.
we definitely appreciate it. Definitely want to give a shout out to BS3 Network, Roku TV, Wing Snob, Crowns by Trey, and also Soul Brother Cigars. So thank you again. This was episode 2, and this definitely goes down in the books. We definitely appreciate the information, and we'll catch everybody next week.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all
See you
take
later.
care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.